What's up, night timers? It's been a few weeks, but I am back for another riveting season of the Alpha Romero channel here on YouTube. Kind of how I look at it. It's different seasons. I'm in season 4 now. Been about a year ago, actually. Just we just passed a little rusty tonight, so bear with me. Um, just passed the 1 year anniversary of the first live stream I ever did. So I've been doing this for a year now. I had no idea that I'd be doing it for this long, but here we are. Um, but I'm glad to be back on here. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. I did get the chance to attend HorrorHound Weekend last weekend in Cincinnati, Ohio. That was a lot of fun. Got I was originally supposed to go Saturday and Sunday. Ended up only going Saturday. Came back home on Sunday. Uh, Daughter was sick, so I had to come on home Sunday. But really, Saturday. I mean, after it was all said and done, I was kind of ready. Like I didn't really go to meet any celebrities or guests or anything or get any autographs because at this point it's so expensive that there's like a few people left on my list of people that I would really pay, good money, like a lot of money to get an autograph or a picture or whatever. Um, and Eli Roth and those guys just weren't those people for me. But I did want to go because it was pretty big con and a lot of vendors, a lot of stuff going on. Did get to see the Blair Witch panel. The whole cast and the director, one of the directors from the Blair Witch Project, was there. So I did get to sit in on that panel when I got there on Saturday. Um, Vendor hall was fantastic. Really the only reason that I went was for the vendors to check them out and everybody was there. I mean, every boutique level and everything. I mean, Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, Synapse. I mean, you name it, they were all there. Um, Great selection of stuff. I mean, I put it this way: if you have a business and you get a booth at a convention like HorrorHound, especially HorrorHound, because I mean, God, that place was packed. Um, if you have a table at HorrorHound and you can't sell your product and you can't make any money doing that, then you probably have something that nobody wants to buy to begin with because there are so many people there and people, with money to burn. You know what I mean? Like so it's very lucrative, I'm sure, for the vendors there, which is good. I mean, the celebrities are cool. I mean, that's all one thing, but the vendors are what really make these conventions fun for me. Just to see what's out there, what you can find because there's some weird shit out there, and some really cool shit as well, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But we'll go into HorrorHound and all that here in just a little bit. I did pick up a few things from HorrorHound. We'll show off here and talk about. Um, I got some other stuff in the mail from eBay that I purchased before going to HorrorHound. So I get quite a bit of stuff. We're just going to do a little show and tell tonight. I'll show you some of the stuff that I've been able to pick up here recently. Like I said, it's been three. I've missed 2 weekends now, so it's been 3 weeks since I've done a live stream. The last one we did Romero soundtracks with buddy Paul Farver. That was really fun. I'm really glad that he was able to come on. I had a really good time talking with him. I'm gonna try to get more guests on as we go. Got a few in the pipeline that I think are going to be really interesting, really fun people to talk to about all things Romero. But speaking of all things Romero, before we get into anything, I want to give it a quick update on the March Madness bracket challenge. That for the contest for this Steelbook 4K Scream Factory release of Creepshow, which is becoming it's kind of becoming infamous at this point. It's one of those titles that are flying off shelves and are getting kind of hard to find at a lot of because I think they're just a Walmart exclusive. I think Walmart is the only place you're gonna be able to find it, and and they're getting pretty scarce. I know I've been to my back to my Walmart because, like I said, when I picked this one up, this was the only one that they had. And I knew I wanted to get it for the contest, so I was able to get my hands on it, and one lucky winner is going to receive it. And I've been back a couple of times since, and they've been sold out. I went back the other day; they had one left. They had one more up there for sale. I thought about it. I was like, man, should I get this for me? Should I pick one up for me while I can? And I just kind of talked myself out of it. But it's one of those that's like, kind of getting pretty hard to find. So it's a pretty cool little prize here. We got three finalists, where we're at now in the tournament, in terms of the point system, and it's come down. We're down to the final contest. You guys have been putting in your votes, and I've been love it, reading the comments and you guys' opinions and takes. Excuse me, opinions and takes on the films, and which one's better, and there's been some where it's like, oh Jesus Christ, why how is this even a contest? And some of them weren't. You get Dawn of the Dead and Land of the Dead, and it's a pretty big landslide. Pretty much all the ones that have gone up against Dawn of the Dead at this point have been a pretty big landslide. But we do have a dark horse in the finals that a lot of people missed out on. I mean, we had one perfect bracket. Daniel Lowry, his bracket was flawless. He was the only perfect bracket we had coming up until this most recent, where we had Day of the Dead going head to head against Night of the Living Dead. And Day of the Dead pulled it out at the end. It was kind of one of those. It was fun. It was fun to watch throughout the day. I'd go back and check my YouTube page and see, like, because it is kind of like following a March Madness basketball game or something, where you're like watching. It's like, oh, Night of the Living Dead is taking the lead, and it's like, oh, here comes Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead's taking the lead. It was kind of going back and forth, but Day of the Dead pulled it out in the end. So the final contest, the final vote, which will be going up for vote, this Monday, April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day. It'll be Dawn of the Dead, the number 1 seed, going up against the number 3 seed, Day of the Dead. And this is an interesting one because odds are Dawn of the Dead will probably pull it out, but because nothing has really even come close to Dawn of the Dead in any of these votes so far. I mean, it went head to head with Creepshow, and I thought that one may be a little closer, but it wasn't. I mean, it was a pretty big blowout. But going up against Day of the Dead, Day of the Dead is again one of those movies. I mean, a lot of people didn't have it, beating Night of the Living Dead, but it did. It's one of those movies that over the years I hear more and more people talking about. I like Day of the Dead. That's my favorite. Like, Day of the Dead's. I tell you what, at HorrorHound, I saw more Day of the Dead T-shirts on people than I did Dawn of the Dead shirts, if that means anything. I saw a few guys wearing Day of the Dead stuff. So it's kind of one of those movies that over the years, it's really, again, I mean, the big question is why? Because, when it came out in 85, it wasn't the biggest success. I mean, it was kind of a flop. It wasn't what people were wanting or what people were expecting. And I mean, it's kind of, if you think about 1985, like we've talked about, not even just 85, but just the 80s in general. I mean, the 80s, horror in the 80s was more of a party. The Friday the 13th, the slashers. I mean, it was more of a party atmosphere. It wasn't as gritty and kind of mean as the 70s. Because, I mean, you think the 70s, we had Last House on the Left and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and just the 70s was a different vibe of horror film. And then the 80s rolls along, and then we get, which are great films, don't get me wrong, it's just a different vibe. I think everything in the 80s was just kind of a different vibe. It was more of an upbeat, party atmosphere because everybody was on cocaine and listening to fucking OMD and Flock of Seagulls and shit like that. Which I love both of those bands. So I mean, I love the 80s. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the 80s. But if you look at the 80s, I mean, I just watched Reanimator for not the first time, but first time in a while, just the other day, and that's one that's just like, oh, it's a fun horror film. Return of the Living Dead is a fun horror film. Everything that came out at that time was, it was just a different vibe. Whereas Day of the Dead came along and it was just like this really dark and depressing and just, hard, bloody film. Same thing with The Thing. I think that's why The Thing didn't work as well when it came out in the 80s, just because it was there was no, levity to it at all. You know what I mean? Like, it was a very, bloody, dark subject, and the ending was just kind of dreary, you know. I think it's the same thing for Day of the Dead, and I think over the years, the same way that The Thing has become so many people's favorite. I mean, that was one thing I did buy at HorrorHound Weekend. I bought my fiance The Thing T-shirt. She wanted a T-shirt, and I was like, well, of all the movies that I've shown her, and we watched a lot. The two that stuck with her the most, she loves Jaws. She says to this day it's the scariest movie she ever saw. Um, she watched Jaws for the first time. She loved Jaws, so she has a Jaws T-shirt. But the other film that she really enjoyed was The Thing, because it was coming back in theaters right during COVID, where they were just kind of playing a lot of old films, and The Thing was playing. So I took her to the theater to show her The Thing, and I remember we came out of it. She was like, I kind of like that, and we watched it again since. So I was like, okay, I'll get her a T-shirt for The Thing. Anyway, I don't want to just veer off into The Thing, but Day of the Dead is just, again, it's one of those movies that in the '80s was just didn't fit the vibe of the time. Whereas over the period of what, '85, so we're coming up on, no way, 40 years since Day. I remember the first time I saw Day of the Dead, it was like 20. I was like, oh, 20 years, that's forever, that's old. Now we're up to 40 years. I mean, Jesus, it's crazy. But yeah, in the 40 years that Day of the Dead is it's been in existence. I think as times have changed, I think people have become more cynic and more cynical and more, distrusting of the government and the military and all that. And I think, I just think the public zeitgeist has changed so much since then um, I think people identify with it more. It's more of a, even and that's where I think Dawn of the Dead. I mean, like I said, Dawn of the Dead is kind of one of those that I think newer, the younger generation now, it's getting harder because when I first saw it, I mean, malls were still the thing. Like it was the '90s when I first saw Dawn of the Dead, and the mall was the best place you could go. It was the coolest place you can go. It had everything. I just don't know if that's the way it is now with kids. I mean, I think people, anytime I see kids at the mall now, is they're just like there to, hang out or whatever, which I guess has always been the case. But used to shop. There were places you would want to go. I mean, I guess you can still buy clothes and stuff, but I don't know. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this vote goes. Dawn of the Dead versus Day of the Dead. And we've got three finalists. Let me look here. I'll pull them up and I'll give you the points totals. And like I said, Dan Lowry had the perfect bracket going, but missed on that last one, and it has knocked him out of the competition. So the way this goes, I mean, the point system, I mean, first round was worth 1 point, second round was worth 2, semifinals were worth 4, and this final round between Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead is worth 10 points. So it's going to come down to these three guys. Brian Marin with 23 points is tied right now with Matthew Saris with 23 points, and both of them have chosen Day of the Dead as their eventual tournament winner. So that's they went dark horse, and it's paying off to this point. Can it go one more round? If not, Brett Aitken is going to be there to pick it up. He's got 21 points, and he has picked Dawn of the Dead to win. So if right there, so if it ends in a tie, like I said, we'll just do a random drawing between Brian and Matthew. But if Dawn of the Dead wins, it's a straight out victory for Brett Aitken. Sorry, which I think is a 1911 guitar dude. If he's watching tonight, he will win this beautiful, beautiful steelbook release of Creepshow in 4K. And let me tell you, the 4K transfer is fucking gorgeous. People like to kind of shit on Scream Factory for some of the titles they release, and yeah, they release a lot of stuff that I'm not too interested in, but they do a bang up job on these releases. I've always thought that Shout, Scream, anything you get from them is gonna look good. It's gonna turn out good. So yeah, that's where we're at. Voting goes up this Monday. Dawn of the Dead versus Day of the Dead. Winner takes home the grand prize. And I don't have any second place trophies or anything, unfortunately. So looks like we got Robert Dobbins in the house. Good to see you, man. Excited to hear about HorrorHound Weekend. I'll get to that here in a minute. Headed my way, creepier. Oh, you're headed to Living Dead Weekend this year. Awesome. I will be there. I will see you there, man. hit me up. We'll chat it up. But that's awesome. Good to see you in here, man. Um, I guess another bit of news we'll get to here. A little some more downer news. Barbara Anderson has passed away. I saw that on Facebook. I think the George A. Romero Foundation posted something about that the other day. And of course, Barbara Anderson was the costume designer. She was married to Cletus Anderson, who was the production designer. They worked with George on everything from Night Riders all the way up until the Dark Half. So she was her and her husband Cletus, which Cletus passed away in 2007. Um, so so yeah, she just recently passed away. I can't remember the date, but it was here very recently. I think they reposted something from the Carnegie Mellon. Um, and I think she used to be like an administrator or something. She taught there. I knew she was teaching there all throughout the years that she was working with George as a costume designer. Um, but I think she was like one of the. I think she retired. What did it say? 2013, I think, as I said, when she retired. So she'd been retired for a while. And how old was she? 89, I believe, somewhere around there. 88, 89 years old. So, a long, successful, very fruitful life. And you just look at the work. I think mainly in terms of film, the only work that she ever did was with George on those films. Um, but great stuff. Between her and her husband, they were working side by side throughout all those years. And I mean, perfect example. I mean, there's a actually, I think it may be even on. Yeah, it's even on this release, but I know the Blu-ray Scream Factory release, as well as the standard 4K release, has an interview with Barbara Anderson that I just took in earlier, um, in kind of her honor, and it's Creepshow is a perfect example of of how well they work together. And Cletus Anderson's brilliant production design on Creepshow is fantastic. Then you look at Day of the Dead, and the Corral and some of the other awesome um, production design that Cletus did there. So I mean, they were just one of Romero's probably. Geez, they probably worked on more films with Romero than almost anybody. Because I mean, like I said, from Night Riders all the way up until the Dark Half, I mean, pretty much anything Pittsburgh, um, After Dawn all the way up until Dark Half, which was Romero's final Pittsburgh film. So yeah, sucks to hear another Romero Lemon. Somebody I never met. Of course, I never met, never got to meet Cletus Anderson or Barbara Anderson. I don't think Barbara Anderson really did conventions or anything like that. I don't recall ever seeing her at one. If anybody knows of one, they can feel free to correct me, but I don't think that was her bag. Like I said, she was kind of an educator, teacher, or whatnot, and she was, I think, for like 40 years or something like that. So, um, you know, a round of applause for Ms. Barbara Anderson. Thank you for all you did, and we really appreciate all the years that you put in and all the work that you did with George. Um, so I hated to hear that. But Robert Dobbins is talking about Living Dead weekend. A couple more guest announcement this week. I think are going to be really, really cool. Greg Nicotero has already announced that he's going to be there. So Greg Nicotero had just got announced for Living Dead weekend. That's really, really cool. Which is kind of it's kind of different for Greg, because usually I feel like because Greg's got so much going on between Creepshow the series, and I think does he own the rights to The Walking Dead now or something fucking crazy. But I mean, the dude is A, loaded, B, constantly busy with K&B and his TV uh, production stuff that he does. I mean, it's a crazy, but so it's really cool that the Living Dead weekend was able to nail him down this early in the process, because typically it's like one of those last minute things where like maybe a week before the convention they'll be like, oh, and Greg's going to be there because he's just cleared schedule. Hell, I remember one year I think he just showed up as a fan and was just like, fuck it, I'll pull up a table and start signing autographs. And he was there like the whole weekend. So it's cool that he's already announced. But the big one that he's bringing with him, which I don't recall ever seeing him at a Living Dead weekend or any other convention, is Howard Berger, the one of the other members of K&B. the the B of the K and B. So Howard Berger's going to be there, and I think they both. I know did Berger work on Day of the Dead? I know he worked on Creepshow too. That's why he's going to be there. But other than the fact that he's Howard Berger and he's part of, the biggest um, special effects house in the history of film or whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah, I don't remember. He may have been on Savini's crew on Day of the Dead. I'm not 100% sure. Um, but that's a really cool one. That's one I'm excited to finally get to meet. And that was one I was talking to. I was talking to Lawrence DeVincent, who of course does the tours and stuff on Living Dead Weekend, and you know, check out his channel WGON TV. He actually just today purchased the TV, the JC Penney's TV from Dawn of the Dead. I was like, oh, you fucker, and it actually works. I was like, oh man, I'm so jealous. Like I have it perfectly in my head. Like if I ever find or come across one of those, I'm totally gonna get one of those civil defense drums and put it over here in the corner back here and put that TV on it and just have it on static at all times as just fucking house decor. But yeah, I mean it's awesome. He just posted an unboxing video of that on his channel earlier, so that was cool to see. But but yeah, he said Howard Berger was one of those guys that he's never met, and I mean Larry's kind of one of those guys that have met pretty much everybody. So it's gonna be pretty cool that he's gonna be there. So again, another big guy, and another one, Fred Decker. I mean, I think that's an awesome get. Um, I was talking to Michael Felsher at HorrorHound over the week, last weekend. We were talking about Living Dead Weekend, and he was just excited to see Fred Decker again. And he was like, "Oh, I bet if anything, he's," because I was like, "Yeah, I don't really ever see him doing conventions very often. Like that's kind of a name." I was kind of surprised. He's like, "Oh yeah, he'll do one every like year or so or something like that." But I think he's mainly just going because he really wants to see them all. I was like, "Yeah, that's probably true." Um, so that would be cool. So those two big new names added to Living Dead Weekend. Of course, there's going to be more. I think they've already announced that was it Lenny Lee's is going to be there. Of course, the regulars, the ones that I think Sharon Hill maybe was the other one that they had announced. So the Dawn zombies and stuff like that. Which Robert, I don't know if you've ever been to the Monroe. I think you said the Evan City ones was the first one for you. So yeah, you'll be able to meet all these guys for the first time, and they're all super nice and super cool. So you're totally worth stopping and chatting with for a little bit. Um, but yeah, that's pretty exciting news. On the Living Dead Weekend front. Um, Will, what's up, man? I see Will Phelps in here tonight. That solid state is everything, dude. I'm telling you, like I look on eBay all the time, and I scour eBay for those fucking things. I never ever find. I see a ton that are like really close. I'm like, oh, is that it? Is that it? And you look, and it's like, no, that's not it. That's not the same one. And of course, Larry finds one. He's just like, "Oh, I got it now," and it works. And that's the thing. Like, I'm like, and it works. Like, that's awesome. If you watch the video, it looked brand new almost. It looked like a brand new fucking TV. But yeah, I was very jealous, very jealous. But that's really cool that he got that. But good to see you in here, man. I looking forward to hooking up with you at Living Dead Weekend this year too. Um, which fuck, we only live like an hour away, so it's like from each other. So it's like, you know, we're gonna travel all the way to Pittsburgh just to hang out when we literally lived right down the road from each other. But yeah, it is what it is. It's part of growing up, part of being an adult. I barely have time to fucking see anybody anymore or do anything. So, um, but okay. So I guess we can talk about Horror Hound. I can start off. I guess first thing I'll start showing some stuff off here that I got before Horror Hound on eBay. Well, fuck it, we'll just go into Horror Hound. Well, I don't know. Let's do a little show and tell first. Like I said, I was talking to Larry. Speaking of Larry, I guess that's a good transition. We'll talk. But I was talking to Lawrence DeVincent, and I ended up sending him a copy of the local newspaper here that had the article on David Emge, which he was really wanting. He was like, "Yeah, I tried calling the newspaper and was like, hey, do you guys have any extra? And could I buy it from you? Could you mail it?" And they were like, "No, like we don't do that. Sorry." And then he's just like, "Oh, okay." So luckily, I was able to grab two, and I sent him a copy, and so in return he sent me some newspapers as well, and I was like, okay, cool. Um, First one he sent me, we'll show here, the Pittsburgh City paper, the coloring edition. Of course, it's got the zombies there, the Frank O'Hara, which is the Kyra Shone zombie with the Frank O'Hara fucking jersey. Or that's actually not the Kyra Shone jersey. That's actually the Paula Richards zombie. Actually, I was kind of just looking at it the first time right there. That's pretty cool. I just kind of noticed that. Um, but yeah, it's got a little article in here. Which this is from September 26th through October 3rd, 2018. So this is a little over a year after George's passing, but it's got a nice little article on, the movies, Night of the Living Dead. It's got the Wall of Fame from the Living Dead Museum in here. So I haven't read any of it yet. I see it's got some interviews here with Gary Striner, John Russo, Russ Striner. Looks like they go into the premiere of the movie in '68, the let's see, on the Museum of Modern Art and 50th anniversary. So I'm pretty interested to check that out. And read that and see what we got in there. Next thing we got, he sent me another copy of the Pittsburgh City paper. This one has like a little magazine in it, and it's got an article in here basically covering a lot of the films and stuff that were shot in Pittsburgh. I mean, an industry, sue me for saying it or whatever the fuck, but I mean, it's an industry that was started by George. I mean, George created by all intents purposes, created the film industry in Pittsburgh. But it's got this awesome photo, which I've seen this somewhere. I think I've seen people when they pick this up, post pictures of it or whatever. But this is, of course, Tarman from Return of the Living Dead, from Living Dead Weekend. Let me see if I can get it good. There we go. Living Dead Weekend 2021, which was the first time I had gone to the mall and all that. And that's actually a cosplay by a guy named Jeffrey Crehan. And I actually have a picture of my daughter, who was like 7 months old or something at the time, in a stroller. And he's like, down, got his arm around her, and she's just like looking up at him, but not like scared, because she's weird, man. We watched the They're Creeping Up on You segment from because I thought maybe she'd get a kick out of it. I don't know. We watched the They're Creeping Up on You segment from Creep Show earlier, and she was just like, except when the bug started coming out of Upson Pratt's throat, and then she was just like, okay, I'm gonna look away now, Dad. I don't want to see this. But she loves being up here and around this stuff. She'll just go over and stare at my like Night of the Living Dead poster for like minutes at a time, just like looking at the zombies, like So yeah, I have a really cool photo with her and Tarman, where she's just like, "What's up, dude?" But yeah, it's got a nice little article in here. Dark Knight Rises from 2012, that was shot in Pittsburgh. Silence of the Lambs, of course, which George has a little cameo in. Dogma '99. So yeah, I mean, just there's so many films over the years shot in Pittsburgh. Really, it all started with Night of the Living Dead. I don't care what anybody says. And then lastly, he sent me a copy of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and I already have this framed because I've already read it, and I was like, I got to frame this and get it on my wall ASAP. But the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette newspaper, the day after, that was released the day after George's passing in 2017. It's got a really good article in here on George's career and his life, and it's really good quotes from Stephen King and Tom Savini and guys like that I kind of forgot a lot of those quotes by those guys. So it's cool to go back and read those and kind of revisit. But yeah, I was super stoked, and it's like I told Larry, I was like, dude, I just love anything from Pittsburgh. Like I've grown to love that city on its own. Like that frame makes me nervous as shit with all the glass. Like I'm gonna break this thing. But yeah, I've just grown to love the city of Pittsburgh as as a city. So I love having anything from Pittsburgh. So just having those newspapers and stuff are really, really cool. So thanks a lot, Larry. I really appreciated it. It really meant a lot that you do that, and I really really appreciate that. Um, but so yeah, guess start talking some horror hound here. Um, Couple here. Let's see, Ben Gebhart, what's up, man? So psyched for LDW. Never imagined meeting Burger and Nicotero. Yeah, really. Nicotero was actually the uh, first guy that I ever met at a convention, first celebrity. And it's funny because the dude is a huge, I mean, the dude's a multimillionaire 10 times over and has every right in the world to just kind of detach himself from all of this, but he's such a fan. He loves George and he loves those movies. I mean, he's just a fan like us. Um, he was the first guy that I met in Dallas, Texas at Texas Frightmare Weekend 2008. And, and I didn't even go up to his table. I just saw him walking into the hotel and I was like, holy shit, it's Greg Nicotero. And my first instinct was like, holy shit, I'm just going to go say hi. And I was like, hey, Greg, Mr. Nicotero, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm glad, and we just talked. He was just like, oh man, where are you from? It's like, oh, I was just like, oh, my favorite movie is Dawn of the Dead. We talked about Dawn of the Dead for a second. Just the coolest, most down to earth guy. So I'm excited to see him again. And Howard Berger is fantastic. I can't wait to finally get to meet him as well. Get a few signatures. That's like I said, that's a guy that I'll pay a little bit to get a few signatures from. Not to mention Decker. Absolutely, also want Tom Atkins photo op in front of the Creep Show house. Not sure if they would do that, but how cool. That is really interesting. Actually, that's something that I would not be surprised at all if they did, because I know the people that own the house from Creep Show are fans of the film. If you go and visit the house, every year around Living Dead weekend, they got it dressed up like it was in the movie. They got the pumpkin in the window. They got the trash can out front. And if you open the trash can lid, there's a copy of Creep Show laying on top of the trash. I mean, they get into it. Really cool people. So I would not be shocked if they actually did something like that, where you could get a photo op with Tom Atkins in front of the Creep Show house. If they do that, I mean, I'm not a huge photo op guy. Even the cool shit, like with the Galen and Scott and Ken that they did last year, with the sitting on the bench and all that, like that was awesome. But I'm not a huge photo guy to begin with. I don't take a lot of pictures of myself. I don't, um, but that might be one that I would have to think on. I might be like, that would be pretty fucking cool, to do that. Um, but yeah, good to see you in here, man. I saw you entered the contest too, and unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna work out. But I appreciate you playing, man. Dude, my bracket, I put in a bracket just for the fuck of it, and I'm in dead last of everybody that entered. So I suck at the at trying to pick like what Romero film was better. Um, so I'm right there with you. Next time I'm in Evansville, let's get a drink. Absolutely, man. Just hit me up. I'll definitely. I definitely love that. Any chance I can get to hang out and talk some George and some Don and all that, I'm 100% down for. Um, so yeah, definitely hit me up, man. Um, let's talk about Cincinnati Living Dead, or not Living Dead weekend. I know I got it on the brain, but HorrorHound Weekend. And HorrorHound Weekend is a completely different kind of convention than Living Dead Weekend. Living Dead Weekend's cool because it's a mall. You're in the mall. The greatest mall in the world, and there's just so much room, and it's not overly crowded, and it's not up, you're not standing in line for long periods of time to get an autograph or a photo or anything. It's really laid back, and it's really just more of like a gathering. It's more, yeah, I would think of it as more of that than just your normal convention. um But I will say this, one cool thing about Cincinnati is Jungle Gyms. If you're ever in Cincinnati and you want to go to the coolest world market you've ever been to in your life, visit Jungle Gyms in Cincinnati, because it's one of my favorite places to go when I'm there. And they actually have Iron City beer. So I ended up buying a 30 pack of Iron City beer to bring home. And that's probably one of my favorite things I got on the trip. So shout out Jungle Gyms and Iron City beer. I was so excited when I saw it. I was like, oh shit. I thought about grabbing 2 cases, but I was like, I don't overdo it. I don't drink that much. Um, so yeah. Cincinnati HorrorHound Weekend. It's the second time I've been to a HorrorHound. I went to the show in 2022, which was the Scream reunion. Ended up going down there, going up there for that one in 22. Had a really good time. It's a really well run convention. Um, the people that put it on, I mean, it's real. It's a very professional. I mean, everybody's doing doing their job and doing it to a high level. Security was cool. I mean, I've never had any issues in any of the couple times I've been there. But I will say this: it is fucking packed. But I mean, you kind of expect that for um, a horror hound or a scare fest or any of the big conventions like that. Um, because I mean, you look at the guest list. I mean, Eli Roth was there, which was a big one. Um, fuck who Sam Raimi. I mean, that was a one that Sam Raimi was the one that I was like, yeah, maybe that might be a guy that I would stand in line for and pay good money for a photo and an autograph with. Um, until I got there and saw the fucking line, and I was just like, no fucking way, I can't. It's not gonna happen. Um, uh, so yeah, I leave early Saturday morning. I get there around noon on Saturday. I meet up with a buddy of mine from here in Evansville, and he went up the day before, and or no, I think he just left really early on Saturday. But I get there, I knew it was gonna be crowded because to find a parking spot was fucking insane. I mean, I had to park literally on the other side of the street at the very end of another parking lot. So I knew it was gonna be crowded. So I was kind of expecting that anyway. Um, So I get there and I go in, and my buddy had already got my wristband, and I met up with him, and we go in. We just start looking, going around to the vendors and stuff. And I mean, at this point, I mean, we're talking like it's probably around noon. Um, and I think, yeah, it was right at noon is when I got there. And I mean, this place is fucking packed. And some of the coolest cosplay is like not something that I'm really ever gonna do. No, it's not something I'm ever interested in doing. But man, some of the thought and the work that some of these people put into these costumes is absolutely fucking insane. There was a girl there that had like it was like a box. It looked like the crate from Creepshow, but it was supposed to be like the basement from Evil Dead, and she was dressed up like um, the fuck, what's her name? The sister, Ash's sister. I can't think of her name, but the one who's like, Yes, Yes, come down here. I don't know if that's a good impression or not, but it's been a little bit since I've seen Evil Dead. But anyway, she was in the box and she was like, they had it chained down and stuff, and then they just wheeled her around the fucking convention. It was pretty funny. Um, but yeah, a lot of cosplay, a lot of that. But I'll tell you what, the one thing that fucking struck me as soon as I walked into that vendor hall, the smell of weed just hit me. I was like, Jesus Christ, these people are just fucking toking up like they didn't give a shit. I mean, there were cops around and everything. Nobody gave a shit. I was like, is Ohio really that chill these days? I don't know. But yeah, the smell of weed, and honestly, I didn't smell like you go to a convention, these type of conventions, and you kind of expect because and it's not even these people are dirty people or anything. It's just you get these many people together in an area like that, and they were just shuffling around. I mean, I was sweating my ass off there. I mean, but usually you kind of expect to smell a little bo some of these people. But luckily, I don't know. Maybe I just missed it. I don't know, but I just mostly smelled weed, and that's about it, really. So not a lot of bo. I'll say that. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. Hell, I may have smelled. I don't fucking know, but I was sweating my ass off. There were so many people there, but there was so much there. So like right around noon on a Saturday, I mean that's like the worst time to kind of try to move around and look at things. So because everybody's at every table and they're stacked 2 or 3 deep, and you're just like Jesus. So we just kind of walked around and looked and talked and just kind of seen what they had. And there were some pretty cool vendors. Like I said, all the boutique labels were there. Synapse was there. Vinegar Syndrome. Lloyd Kaufman was there with Trauma. That was really cool. And Trauma does it right. They had a big setup there. Lloyd Kaufman was there. He had a guy dressed as as Toxie from the Toxic Avenger. So like, and I guess if you bought anything from the Trauma table, you could, Lloyd Kaufman would take a picture with you, and so there was always a huge crowd around the Trauma table. I didn't really get to look around there that table very much. The Synapse table was always pretty busy. Severin was there. Their table was pretty busy. By the time I'd got there, they'd sold out of a few things that they had had. I know that Four Flies on Grey Velvet 4K, which apparently they still have copies of. Go figure. Um, that was already pretty much sold out by the time I'd got there at noon on Saturday. The Church, which was one that I was kind of wanting to pick up. I think there was like one or two copies left on the table that I just missed out on, because literally, if you walk away from the table, you come back later that day, they're gone. That happened with me and at the Vinegar Syndrome table, because I saw they had the Flesh Eater 4K that they did. They had two copies of it there, and I was looking at it, I was like, man, like I always joke about like, why the fuck would anybody need Flesh Eater in 4K? But looking at it, I was like, but it does look pretty cool. And that's the thing with Vinegar Syndrome. If you're familiar with Vinegar Syndrome at all, is the way that I put it is Vinegar Syndrome is really, really good at taking a steaming piece of shit, shining it up really, really nice, and selling it to you in a beautiful box. That's To me, that's what a lot of Vinegar Syndrome does. But people go fucking nuts for it. People fucking love that shit. I don't understand why you need a $50 version deluxe, box set of fucking Bogey Creek, but some people need that, I guess. But anyway, I saw they had two copies of the Flesh Eater 4K, and I saw those, and I was like, holy shit, maybe I'll pick this up, because I don't have a copy of Flesh Eater on DVD, VHS, whatever. I don't have it. So I'll circle around. I'll see what else I can find, and and if I don't find anything, maybe I'll come back and pick it up. My daughter is throwing a fucking fit downstairs. Anyway, she's at that age, man. She's getting. She wants something. God damn. Um. Anyway, what the fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, Flesh Eater on 4K. So yeah, I circle the vendor hall a little bit. Come back, I'm looking for it. It's fucking gone. The two copies I had, people saw. So I'm telling you, if you have a booth at these at HorrorHound, and you couldn't make any money, then you probably just need to get out of the game, because you're not selling anything that anybody is interested in, unless you're trying to sell. They did see some really cool stuff that was like, high dollar, like artwork and stuff, which one of which I'll talk about here in just a little bit. But like sculptures and 3D, prints and stuff, like 3D sculptures and shit like that. Stuff that I would love to have, but there's no way in hell I had the money to buy any of it. So yeah, Severin was there. Like they looked pretty busy, like they were doing pretty good business. All Fright Rags, had I mean, pretty much everybody was there. Trick or Treat Studios had a booth there. So it's like every vendor you could think of was at HorrorHound. So that was cool. But then you had, of course, your smaller, like, just, um, not mom and pop, but you know what I mean? Like, just your regular Joes that are just kind of like selling old posters and stuff, which are usually my favorite, because those are the ones you can usually get pretty good deals with. There was a guy there selling a lot of one sheets. I saw they had they had John Russo's Midnight, which I'm actually, to be honest, I just watched Midnight for the very first time, maybe a week, or maybe a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure. I just saw it for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I there's part of me that understands that it's not a very good movie. Like, it's not very well made in parts, and there's issues, and all that. Hold on one second. Everly's having a damn hissy fit. Hang on one second. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, I've kind of, after watching Midnight, as I'm watching, I'm like, man, this is like Ed Wood level shit. But by the end of it, I was just kind of like, I kind of dug that. I kind of like it. So I'm gonna need to rewatch it and kind of figure out if I really am a fan of John Russo's Midnight or not, because I did kind of dig. There's something about it that's just kind of stuck with me. I was just kind of like, it wasn't too bad. Yeah, there's some iffy parts to it, but especially comparing it to a lot of the other films of John Russo. It's actually kind of John Russo's masterpiece in a way. So, um, but they had the one sheet of Midnight, and I saw that, and it was like $70. I was like, God, do I want to spend $70 on a Midnight one sheet? But there was a part of me that was like kind of trying to talk myself into it, but I didn't do it. Which I may have if I had gone back on Sunday, but I didn't, so maybe that kind of saved me. But and I have just no fucking wall space for it anymore. I have a whole corner of posters and one sheets that I got nowhere to put. So it would just be another one that would just be sitting in the corner somewhere. Um, but yeah, there's just so many vendors, a lot of homemade stuff, like just candles and all all that shit. But there's just so much, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like 99% of the stuff. If I just saw it in the wild, like if I was just like, if I saw it at a flea market or something, I'd be like, it would be an instant buy. But when you're surrounded by nothing but that kind of stuff, it's really easy to, and for me personally, it's very easy to kind of say, okay, this is really cool. I'd love to have that, but I'm just going to step away and just keep, just keep looking and really get something that you really want, because it's so easy to go to these things. And Living Dead weekend is usually when I do go and spend way more money than I should on stuff. Um, but I was just kind of looking for something really cool. Um, so let's see. So yeah, we walked around the vendor hall for about an hour, just looking at stuff and talking and bullshitting. Um, got a couple of comments here real quick. Let me check it out. New name here. Keith Bell. What's up, man? Good to see you. Love your channel. I was 13 in 1978 when I first saw Dawn of the Dead, and I've been a Romero fan ever since. Well, I sure appreciate you checking out the channel, man. I'm glad to have you on board. Glad you're checking this out. Feel free to comment any questions, comments, suggestions, whatever. Let me know, what other content would you guys like to see on this? But I'm glad to have you on board, man. Um, and this is if you're a Romero fan, this is definitely a channel for you. So I'm glad to have you on board, Mr. Keith Bell. And then Al Neary, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. Sweet score. I guess you're talking about the newspapers. Yeah, I was a really big fan. Like I said, I'm just a big fan of anything Pittsburgh at this point. Um, like I said, probably the Iron City beer. Finding that in Cincinnati was probably one of my favorite things that I ended up picking up at HorrorHound. But good seeing here, man. Um, so yeah, about 1 o'clock was the Blair Witch panel, which is one that I was really looking forward to seeing because those guys have never really done. I don't know if they've done a convention together, all three of them like that before. And I just rewatched the Blair Witch Project. I think the night before I left. I think that Friday night. And I just love the Blair Witch Project. I know that's one that's like very divisive among fans. Like some fans love it and appreciate it for what it is, and then some fans are just like, "Oh, that movie fucking sucks, man." They were trying to sell that. And it's like it's like if you're a wrestling fan, it's like those fans that just hate to be worked. Like I hate getting worked. It's like, oh, they tried to work me. They made me believe that it was real for 5 seconds. Fuck them. Um, but I mean, it was so innovative the way that they opened that movie and the way that they promoted and sold that movie to the audience, and it really reminded me, um, to me, the Blair Witch Project for my generation is what Texas Chainsaw Massacre was to my parents' generation. Because I remember so vividly when that movie was out, it was so divisive among people, but everybody was going to see it and everybody was talking about it. Like it was just, and speaking of, I got something in the mail the other day, which I'll show here in a second. Speaking of, you know, pop culture, Blair Witch Project, and how popular and over it was at the time, but it was one of those movies that you would hear some people, they would just be like, "Oh, it sucked." Like, "Wow, that movie was terrible." Then you get those some people that were like, "Oh man, that movie was the scariest thing I've ever seen." And I remember as a kid, like I was, because I grew up like watching horror movies. I was kind of used to horror. And hearing all these people talking about this, I'm like, what the fuck is the big deal? Like, it looks stupid. Like, who wants to see that? Like, there's no, it looks, I don't understand it. So it took me a couple of years before I saw it for the first time. And the first time that I saw the Blair Witch Project, um, I was living kind of in the woods at the time. I was surrounded by the woods, so it was a perfect, you know, perfect setting to see a movie like that. And I was home alone. I was probably what? This was probably 2001, so I was maybe 12, 11, 12 years old. Home alone at night. Um, and for some reason, I just decided, hey, I'm gonna check. I think I pay per viewed it. I think it was on pay per view, and I decided I'm gonna watch Blair Witch Project for the first time. I'm gonna give it a shot. We'll see what happens. And needless to say, after the movie was over, I just sat on my couch, afraid to move. It worked for me because I still wasn't sure if it was because I mean you got to think about it. 1999, nobody had really seen that type of film. Of course, Cannibal Holocaust in 1980, but that was kind of like an underground thing where it wasn't really, for an 11-year-old in 1999 or 2000, whatever it was, like I didn't know what the fuck Cannibal Holocaust was. So this is the first time that I had ever seen anything like a found footage film. So I just did not know. And of course, I remember seeing like the documentary that they did called Curse of the Blair Witch that I think came out on Sci-Fi Channel or something back when that before that movie came out. So I did not know if it was real or fake or whatever. Um, so that was a big sticking point for me. And just the way that was done, you don't see anything. It's all just sound and theater of the mind. Your mind is tricking you into this stuff, and that's so deliberate. The filmmakers did that so deliberately, and you can tell. Like I noticed that going back watching it the other night for the first time a little bit. They set all that up at the beginning of the film when they're interviewing like the townspeople and stuff, and you're just hearing all these like myths and theories and stuff from these people. And so all this is our they're putting all of this in your head. So when we get to the scary parts, you're able to fill in all of this, of what's out there, what's making these noises. You're able to fill it all in. Um, just from the myths and the legends and stuff that you heard at the beginning of the film. But the part that really got me was the part where they're interviewing the guy and he says, "Oh, my grandmother used to tell me about the Blair Witch, and she used to say that if we stayed up too late at night and walked around the house too much, the Blair Witch would come and get us." Perfect time for that. I was like by myself in the middle of the woods, late at night. So I didn't move. I was just like, I'm just gonna sit here on the couch until my parents get home because fuck that. I'm not messing with that. So again, Blair Witch Project to me was kind of my generation's version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre because my parents, I remember hearing my parents always talking about, oh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's one of the scariest movies I ever saw, and it was a huge like phenomenon back in the day. Like that was just kind of it became like a pop culture thing. So that's what it reminded me of. But it was awesome hearing the panel at HorrorHound, getting back to HorrorHound. Awesome listening to those guys talk. Everybody seemed to be in good spirits. Had told some great stories, stuff that I had no idea, did not know. Uh, it did get a little weird at the end. I will say it went on for a little over an hour. Um, and I guess weird may not be the word for it, but it did get. It just felt like they just took they were going for so long that it just kind of took a turn into like, oh boy, here we go territory. You know what I mean? Like we're just like, oh Jesus. Because and I guess maybe this is a true story. I don't know, but Heather started talking about, she started getting death threats because she was a strong female character and men hate strong female characters and shit. And I'm just like, I don't know if that's why you were getting death threats. I think people just thought you were really annoying in the movie. That's what I always heard. Everybody was like, oh, she's so annoying, which it's not her fault. I mean, it's not. I don't think people are saying she was annoying because she was a woman or anything. I think it was just more of like, oh, she's annoying because she's the one that always has the camera. So you're always hearing her voice, loud and clear, her screaming and her emotions or whatever. So it's easy for that to get on people's nerves, I guess. But yeah, other than that, it was a really, really cool, really fun panel. Good listening to all those guys. And then there was supposed to be an Evil Dead panel after that. So I was going to stick around for that and watch because they were supposed to be. I thought it was going to be Sam Raimi, Ed Raimi. It was interesting because Ivan Raimi. I was surprised to see him because it's not. He doesn't do like a lot of conventions. He's not a film guy. I think he owns he's a dentist in Chicago or something like that. So I thought it'd be really cool to hear all those guys sit down and talk about Evil Dead, but I think Sam Raimi was too busy. He couldn't make the panel, so it was just Ivan and Ted. And I was just like, I'm kind of starving. I hadn't really eaten since I'd left that morning. So I went and got a bite to eat and um, went back outside for a smoke or something like that. And then ended up walking around the vendor hall a little more. Um, and then I think my buddy was getting ready to leave. So we went outside. We were talking for a little bit. I was smoking a couple of cigarettes while we were out there, and we were just bullshitting. We were probably out there talking for about 45 minutes or so. Because it was just so crowded and so hot in that convention center with all those people. It was just nice to get outside and get some fresh air for a while. But as we were out there, we were just sitting there talking, and right by us comes the Dead Pit guys, CK and Uncle Bill. And I was just kind of like starstruck for a second because I'm just like I'm a huge fan of that of their YouTube channel and their podcast. I mean, they've been doing this for, they've been doing horror talk radio since 2005, I think. So they were kind of the first guys to kind of do a horror podcast, which it wasn't even really called a podcast back then. So I was kind of a little starstruck. I was just like, "Hey, Dead Pit," and they looked. I was like, "Oh, hey, it's Alpha." We talked for a little bit and just kind of shot shit and. Um, so it was really cool seeing those guys. It was weird seeing them in person because I see them all the time on streams like this. So I hope you know I hope it's not too weird if any of you guys that are normal viewers of these streams see me in person. You're like, oh man, it's kind of weird, but yeah, it is kind of weird. You see these people all the time, and you see them in person, and it's just like, oh wow, they're real people. Um, but yeah, it was cool seeing those guys and getting to talk to them and finally meet them in person. Of course, Matt was with them. Phantasm Matt. He has a YouTube channel, I believe, but he's a Dead Pit regular. Good to meet him finally, and so that was really cool getting to run into those guys. Um, and they were going. That was their big thing was they were meeting Eli Roth for the first because they've been talking shit about Eli Roth since the beginning of the show. So they were finally going to meet him. So that was their big thing. But my buddy ended up heading home. I went back inside, went checking out more of the vendors and stuff. And one of the first things I bought while I was there, I stopped by the Synapse table, and I have this. I have the Blue Underground release of this, but I've been meaning to get the 4K version that Synapse did because Synapse in terms of transfers and the work that they put into making these films look as good as they do, Synapse is probably the best for my money. Like Scream Factory's pretty good, but Synapse, I mean, God, that just go look at the Suspiria release that they did, the 4K Suspiria release that Synapse did, and I mean, Jesus Christ. So I was really looking forward. They saw that they had this. It's Living Dead at Manchester Morgue on 4K. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's one of the early zombie films. It's kind of it kind of predates Dawn of the Dead in terms of the gore factor, because we see intestines ripping and all that stuff. And then this was made in 1974, so this is only what 5-6 years after Night of the Living Dead. It's an Italian. I want to say it's an Italian made film, but it's set in England. So it's like this weird. I don't know how to describe it. I watched it again last night for the first time, and I really enjoy it. But it's just something so weird about it because it has that. It almost feels like a giallo, but at the same time, it's set in the UK, so it almost has like this weird like UK feel to it. But it also it's a very European feeling film is I guess the only way that I can put it. But it looks great. The 4K transfer that they did on this looks as good as I was hoping it would. Um, but yeah, really, really good film. Check it out. It's also called, I think the title that it went by here in the US, which I've seen, I think Anchor Bay put out a release of it back in the day, but it was called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. Um, but I've always known it as Living Dead in Manchester Morgue. Just because I think that's a badass name. It sounds like a fucking Misfits song title or something like that, which it may be. I don't know. But yeah, really good, really nice release here. And they had this in like a steelbook Blu-ray and a couple of things too. But I was like, I'll just splurge and get the 4K. So I was really excited to pick this up. Check it out. Any of you guys that haven't seen this, like I said, it's one of the like I said, 1974, a couple 4 or 5 years after Night of the Living Dead. And like I said, predates Dawn of the Dead a lot in terms of the gore and kind of pushing the envelope. So Very good film. Check it out. Glad to pick that up. Um, Another thing I was able to pick up while I was there, I was just checking out. Let me see here. So I picked this up, and this is a guy. His name is Byron Winton. He is he's an artist, and he's done some of the posters for Living Dead Weekend. He was there, and he was selling some originals and some prints and stuff like that. It's website is byronwinton.com, BYRONWINTON.com. Does really, really awesome artwork. Like I said, he was commissioned to do the artwork for some of the posters for Living Dead Weekend. I know he did the one last year. He's done them for the past few years, I believe. Um, he was there selling prints. I stopped, talked to him for a little bit. He's a Pittsburgh guy. He's a huge, Romero fan and stuff. So we talked. We were talking about Living Dead Weekend a little bit and some of his designs and stuff. I ended up picking this up off of him. It's the artwork. I believe it's from the 45th anniversary of Dawn of the Dead that they did for Living Dead Weekend. It's titled Clock Tower Gathering. Of course, it's got the Hare Krishna zombie and Jim Crut and Airport Zombie and Sharon Hill Nurse Zombie. I just love the artwork. I love the concept of it. The gathering at the clock tower. It's just kind of which clock tower is like one of the iconic aspects of the mall. So it's not the original, it's just a print, but I was happy to pick this up from him and have it on my wall, which I got a lot of the stuff, like I said, already framed and put up on the wall, so I had to pull it down off the wall. That's another thing I've spent my time doing over the past few weeks that I haven't been on here streaming, is I actually got in here and started putting some stuff away and making some room, because I really was starting to run out of fucking room. So I was able to put some more stuff up and kind of rearrange. You can see a few more things back here on the wall and just trying to make some room. So I've already got that on there. But it's awesome meeting him, talking to him. Like I said, byronwinton.com. Check it out. I got the link down in the description if you want to check out his website. It does really, really great work. Not just Romero stuff. I mean, he had, horror stuff from all kinds. Really, really cool guy. He said he will be at Living Dead Weekend this year too. So if you get a chance, stop by his booth and check out his stuff, because, like I said, it's really, really good stuff. And then another artist that I ran into it was really cool to talk to. We talked for probably 40 minutes. I mean, it felt like we talked for quite a while. We covered a lot of ground. It's a guy. This guy is actually doing the poster or artwork for Living Dead Weekend this year, for Creep Year. And it's an artist by the name of Michael Salandra. Not sure. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. Let's see if you can check that out there. Michael, that's how you spell it if you want to look him up. His website is www.salandrastudio.com. And he actually had a lot of artwork, a lot of Romero artwork as well. He's another Pittsburgh guy. I think he may be an Ohio guy, but he's at all, every Living Dead Weekend. He's actually doing the artwork, like I said, for Living Dead Weekend this year. And he actually gave me kind of a preview of what the poster artwork for Living Dead Weekend is going to kind of look like this year. He didn't show me anything. He was still working on it. He didn't have it, but he was kind of explaining kind of the concept of it and what he was kind of going for and trying to, incorporate, because I mean, like, it's Creep Year, it's Creep Show 2, Night of the Creeps, and trying to incorporate all that into one poster is kind of a difficult thing to do. And it was interesting. I was talking to Byron Winton, the guy previous, about it, and I was asking, "Are you doing the poster for it this year?" And this is before I actually talked to Michael about it. And Byron said, "No, I couldn't do it this year," because his claim, I guess, was kind of that he felt like it'd be kind of too hard, because a lot of his prints, a lot of stuff that he does, kind of like this one that I bought, the clock tower print there. He also sells these art pieces, on their own at every convention. So he said it'd be kind of hard to kind of put the time and effort into coming up with something to kind of incorporate Creep Show and Night of the Creeps, which are just two films that didn't have the name Creep in it, but two very different films. So to incorporate that, it'd be kind of like a one-time thing that he'd be able to sell one time, and then it'd be kind of hard to sell after the fact. But listening to Michael talk about his concept for for the poster art this year. It sounds like it's going to be pretty damn cool if he can pull it off the way he's hoping to. He said he's already been working on it, and it should be coming down the pike here soon before the show. But yeah, we talked for a while. The thing, he had a whole section of like Night of the Living Dead artwork and Romero related stuff. So of course I was sitting there just flipping through that stuff. And then I noticed behind him he had some original paintings behind him, and one of them that he had was an original painting that he had did, and canvas painting of which was framed and everything of David Emge as Flyboy, like a close up of the Flyboy zombie face. And I just thought it looked so cool. I was like, man, I would love to have that, especially after this wild start to the year with losing David and going to his funeral and meeting his family and all that. It's just kind of been a weird, I've connected to Dave Emge in some weird way for me this year. So I was drawn to that, and I was just like, man, how much? I asked him, I was like, how much? What kind of price you got on that? And he told me it was like 350 or something like that, and I was like, man, I'd love to. I'd have to make a call to my fiance to get that cleared first, but I'd love to have. So we talked about that. He kind of talked about, and he had some other stuff, a lot of Night of Living Dead related stuff there. He had another there was another Dawn of the Dead painting, an original painting that he had there that looked really really cool too. I can't remember what it was. Um, Shit, I can't remember what it is, what it looked like off the top of my head, but he had a lot of Romero. So immediately we just start talking about George, and he's talking about, oh yeah, I'm doing the poster for Living Dead weekend this year, and we start talking about who's going to be there, and he starts talking about his history with George, and talking about his history with cast and crew, and just talking about how weird it is, some of these experiences, because he starts talking, he's like, I grew up on these movies, and I was just such a huge fan and all that. And then one day I find myself sitting at a table having dinner with George Romero and Russ Striner and all these guys, and it's just like it doesn't hit you until it hits you, and then you're just like, what the fuck? Where am I at? And I'm just like, like you have those experiences, those weird experiences. Like I remember sitting like when the first time in Dallas, Texas for the Texas Frightmare weekend, we were at the 40th anniversary of Night of the Living Dead, the screening that a fucking an actual screening. I think it was a 16 millimeter print, or maybe a 35. I think it was a 35 millimeter print of Night of the Living Dead. And I'm just sitting there in the theater, and I look over, and I'm sitting next to like Tom Savini is sitting right next to me, just eating popcorn and just watching every frame of the movie. And it was just like this weird moment where you're just like, God, I would have never have imagined in a million years that I would be in this position. But yeah, we were just talking about that. He was talking about, he's good friends with Lori Cardill. Lori, still shoot him a text and stuff, probably like once a week, just seeing how he's doing, and, just bullshitting about anything. So we were just talking about that, just sharing stories, and it was a really really cool guy. It was such a pleasure to meet him. I was so glad to run into some like-minded Romero, because a lot of these conventions, there's everybody there. That's the thing about Living Dead Weekend. Living Dead Weekend, you kind of go, and it's like, everybody there speaks the same language. Everybody there is pretty much of the same mindset, so it's easy to kind of get lost in it. But HorrorHound Weekend, it's like you got horror fans and movie fans from like all over the spectrum. Like you got your hardcore punk, horror guys. You got your weird, horror. I don't know how to explain it without getting, offensive, or not offensive, but you know what I mean? Like just, those weird, I call them the Terrifier fans. Like, yeah, if you like Terrifier, that's awesome. Like I went to see it, in theaters, the most recent one, Terrifier 2. And I appreciated it for what it was, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. But I feel like there's a certain type of horror fan, like a real, troll that just loves those type of movies. Um, not that it's a bad thing, like I'm saying. I mean, it was cool for what it was, but it's just different. Like I said, it's on a spectrum. It's different types of fans. So it's just cool getting a chance to talk to some huge Romero fans as well. And speaking of talking to huge Romero fans, um, So I get through talking to Michael. He's back. He's starting to sell some of his stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna let you go, man. It was a pleasure meeting you. And I was actually planning on going back on Sunday. I was gonna talk to my fiance about it and maybe go back on Sunday for that Dave Emge painting because I loved it. If he's yeah, he said he's gonna be a Living Dead weekend this year. He's gonna have a booth there. If he does have that painting there, I might. I think I'm probably gonna pull the trigger on it because it was just beautiful and I'd love to have that hanging in here. I just think it'd be the perfect thing to have. Um, Hang on, I got miss a comment here. Jimmy G, what's up, man? Good to see you on tonight, buddy. Not sure if I'll make it to Pittsburgh this year, but we'll see. Love that place. Yeah, man, I'd love to. Hold on, I've been infiltrated. This is Uncle Mark. What's up, man? Love you. Love this kind of stuff. Sick, sick, sick. Yes, I do. And I've talked about you on these streams before. Sorry. I've given you all the credit, Uncle Mark. This is the guy that had got me in, that introduced me to Dawn of the Dead for the first time. When as young kids talking about Resident Evil and zombies, and I was like, oh, I'd love to see a zombie game or a zombie movie in a mall. And Uncle Mark was like, hey, there's actually a movie you might want to watch. I'm like, oh, really? So, well, that's awesome. Glad you're in here, man. This is the famous Uncle Mark. Yeah. Glad to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. It's been a while. Um, so, Uncle Mark, I'm a bad influence. Yeah, man, I don't know. It depends on who you're talking to. I don't know. Maybe you look around my room right now and say, yeah, maybe. But nah, I wouldn't call you a bad influence. I'd call you an influence, but I wouldn't call you a bad influence. But glad to see you in here. I'm glad to have you in here. That's really, really cool. Because if longtime viewers of this channel and have been watching my streams know the story of how I got introduced to all this stuff. And so, but yeah, Jimmy G, definitely get back to you real quick. Sorry, I totally got sidetracked. I saw Uncle Mark on here, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta give Uncle Mark a shout out. But not sure if you're gonna make it to Pittsburgh. Hope you do, man. That'd be really sweet. I don't remember where you're located. I don't know how far of a trip it would be for you, but I'd definitely love to meet you there, man. Um, yeah. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Uncle Mark's in here. Good to see you, man. Good to talk to you. But yeah, back to HorrorHound. So at this point, it's probably about 5 o'clock or so, 5, 6 o'clock. It's starting to wind down a little bit. The crowd's kind of dying down a little bit. And I look over at the Synapse table and I see Uncle Bill from Dead Pit talking to Michael Felcher. So I go over and I interject and we start picking at Felcher, asking, when are you going to give us the scoops, because that's kind of what he's famous for on Dead Pit, is kind of letting secrets out of the bag before he's supposed to. And so, we're joking. UB walks away, and I just kind of stand there. I start talking about Living Dead Weekend with Felcher, and we ended up, just talking for a little bit there. We start talking about Living Dead Weekend. We start talking about, different stuff coming out, and Felcher's a guy. I mean, you get him going about Romero, and it's all like it's over. He's one of those guys that can talk Romero hours and hours and hours, and he was a good friend of Romero's. I mean, he's the guy. If you don't know Michael Felcher, if you own a George Romero DVD or Blu-ray or 4K or anything having to do with Romero, Felcher worked on it, or he was in it even. I mean, he's in Survival of the Dead. I think he may have been in Diary of the Dead, but I mean, I know he was in Land of the Dead too. But I mean, just worked with Romero for years, and actually towards the end of Romero's life, I think he said this is in 2016, I believe, actually sat down with George. George called him up one day and said, hey, can you come? I kind of want to sit down and go through every film that I ever made and just go through my entire filmography and talk about it. Would you have time? Could you make time, to come down and talk to me about it and record it? After we watch the film and then we talk about it and record it. And Felcher's just like, have time. Like, I'll fucking, like, I don't, I'll be there in an hour, type of thing. And so he's got like hours and hours and hours of like this interview, not even really an interview, just conversation that he had with George, where they sat down over a period of, I think he said 6 7 days, something like that, where him and George would sit down, watch everything from Night of the Living Dead all the way through Survival of the Dead, every film. They'd watch it and talk about it. For after the film, they just sit down and talk about it and record it. It's just an audio recording. um that is one of my like holy grails. Like I want to hear every second of those recordings. I want to hear. I've asked him about it a number of times at this point, of what he plans on doing with it, if he has a plan for it. And so far he doesn't know. He kind of has an idea of maybe something he could do with it, but he at this point he's not sure. um but he does plan on doing something with it eventually. So when that is, I don't know, but he needs to hurry up because I need to listen to that. So yeah, that's one of my holy grails. So just talking to him about that, and just talking to him about the Martin black and white, um, which I think was brought up. We were talking about Nicotero being a Living Dead weekend this year, and he mentioned, he was like, "Oh, I don't want you to. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but Nicotero was the one that I was like, I know. He's the one that ended up buying that Martin print for $50,000." And he was like, yeah. So we talked about that for a while. And as we're sitting there talking, Matt Blasey walks up and starts talking. He's just like, hey, and I'm just like, oh shit, it's Matt Blasey, from the Garf Network. Him and Eric Ken over on the Garf. They do great work, and have that. I owe the reason that I'm doing this is really because of them. They WGON radio. Um, I was such a huge fan. Still am. I'll still go back and listen to those episodes. Like if I got nothing else, if I've listened to every Cornet podcast that they've put out, if I've got nothing, I'll go back to the WGON and I'll just listen to like the Tom Dubinsky interview, or the Donald Rubenstein interview. Just great stuff. So he was there, seeing him. We stood there, him, me, Felcher, just talked, and kind of got some information on some possible future releases coming soon, which have been kind of talked about, and the rumors have been out there, but pretty much confirmed by Felcher. Which, if you know Matt Blasey, he's probably the world's biggest Bruiser fan, Romero's Bruiser. So if you want to put two and two together, I don't want to come out and spoil anything, or tell tales out of school. But if you want to put those two together, we'll feel free. But um, so yeah, it was really cool talking. Again, Blasie's a huge Romero fan. I mean, he's one of the guys that kind of introduced me to, especially in the world of the internet, kind of introduced me to everything out there, that homepage of the dead, and he had a website back in the day, WGON. So it was really cool just talking to him and Felcher, and just talking Romero for however long. And then that was right around the time when they were starting to close up shop. They were starting to throw the sheets over everything, and they were calling it a night. So uh so headed out. I, and that's really all I got from the convention, pretty much. I think was just that 4K and that artwork. But I was kind of holding off. I was kind of, like I said, I was planning on being there that Sunday too, but unfortunately, so Saturday night I ended up leaving. I ended up just grabbing a bite to eat. I could just grab something from McDonald's or something like that, and checked into my hotel, which I did go cheap on a hotel, but I was trying to go cheap, but like not sleazy motel, cheap. Which it turned out that the hotel wasn't that bad, but I don't want to name names, but if you're going to Cincinnati, if you're going to be in that area, the Super 8 it is a little sketch, but at the same time, it wasn't that bad, But once I checked in, and they gave me the key. They gave me the key to one room. I pull the car around. I pull up to the room. I open the door. I go inside, and it's somebody else's fucking room. Like there's luggage and shit. Luckily, there was nobody fucking in there. But it would have really been like, I could have been shot. I could have been killed. I don't know. So I'm like, okay. So I go back. I'm like, yeah, you guys gave me the key to somebody else's room. And they're like, oh, we did. Oh, sorry. Oh, here's another one. You're in room whatever. So I got to that one, and luckily that was an empty room. So But it wasn't too bad. I ended up going to Jungle Gyms and grabbing that case of Iron City, going back to the room, and just listening to some stuff, and then going to bed at a pretty decent hour. And then Sunday morning, I'll wake up, and like I said, I was planning on going back to HorrorHound, but I ended up getting called that my daughter was pretty sick, so I decided just to come on home. So that was kind of my HorrorHound weekend. I mean, it was really cool seeing the Dead Pit guys, talking to Felsher, talking to Blasey, getting a little inside information. I think one thing that I'll say that I don't want to spill the beans or too much on. That I do think that there is I do think, according to sources, we'll just say that there is going to be a Dark Half 4K coming soon, and so that you got that to look forward to. I wasn't expecting a Dark Half 4K, but we do have a 4K because the Dark Half on the Blu-ray that I think Scream Factory put out, I think that's been out of print for quite a while now, so it's kind of one of those. It's kind of hard to find. So they are going to re-release that in 4K coming soon. So that more Romero related stuff coming soon. But yeah, outside of that, I did get some other stuff in the mail that I'm going to show off. I guess the first thing, since I was talking about Blair Witch Project not too long ago. Let me see here. Matt Landrum, WGN podcast got me through COVID. Dude, I'm telling you, I started no shit. Like when during that COVID time where they were doing a lot of those streams and started doing a lot, like that was everything for me. Like I the WGON podcast is synonymous with COVID for me, because that's when they kind of just started picking up and doing it all the time, and that's what I listened to all the time during that time period. So I'm 100% there with you, man. Totally agree with that. Good to see you in here, man. But yeah, I'll go ahead and show some of the stuff that I got here, just in the mail that I picked up. This is one thing, and you're gonna say, yeah, I guess it's Blair Witch related. But you're gonna see this, you're gonna say, why? And it's a DVD of the Bogus Witch Project. I don't know if you guys remember the Bogus Witch Project, but it's kind of a parody that had Pauly Shore in it. But a lot of people don't know, and I was hip to this by Larry when I was talking to him at the Living Dead Weekend last year in Evan City. Had no idea, because I ended up picking up the sports docs. Larry had the VHS tapes of a lot of the Pittsburgh sports docs that Romero did in the mid 70s. I'd never seen any of them, and he had the whole stack there, and I was just like, I'll take those off your hands, thank you. And we were talking about Juice on the Loose, the O.J. Simpson documentary that George did in the mid 70s, which is kind of hard to find anymore. Like nobody, I mean, why would you want to show that anywhere or see it anywhere? But apparently, and I haven't tested this yet. So I don't know if it's going to work for me or not. But apparently, on this disc, for whatever reason, on this DVD, there is an Easter egg that I think it's, from what I read in like the menus, at some point when you're flipping through the menu, you're supposed to hit a certain number, and then it'll take you to Juice on the Loose, the O.J. Simpson documentary that George directed back in the mid 70s. I don't know why. I don't know what it has to do with this movie. I've never seen this movie. I don't think I plan on watching it, honestly, unless I'm really, really fucking bored. But I literally just bought this just for that Easter egg, and I'm going to test it and see if it works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I'm kind of excited to see, because I've never seen the O.J. Simpson Juice on the Loose sports doc. So yeah, so that's the first thing I ended up picking up on eBay. So if you ever see this out and about, and you want to see the O.J. Simpson documentary that George Romero did in mid 70s, pick it up, and you can, the code or the special, how to access it. You can find that on the internet. I saw it on the internet. So that's the first thing that I've picked up here recently. Another thing that I got off of eBay, I found I think this is a first pressing release of the paperback Dawn of the Dead novelization, which is cool in and of itself. I did own this before. I ended up selling it in that live auction that I did months back, because I have a couple of other different versions of it, but I ended up picking this one back up. Let me go ahead and open it here. Ended up picking this up because this one included a special little card. So when you bought this book back in the day, 1978, 79, whenever this came out, you'd get a little card that came with it. As you can see here, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth, and they're coming for you. They had to add that little part there to really sell it. As if the dead coming back to life and walking the earth wasn't terrifying enough. They had to add in, and they're coming for you. Just in case you didn't know that, they're coming for you. But it's got, it's like a little catalog where you can get, the Varice Saraband records or whatever the hell you call it. Of course, the original release of the Dawn of the Dead original soundtrack from Goblin, along with the original soundtrack for Martin from Donald Rubenstein, and some other stuff here, Piranha, Dunwich Horror. So yeah, back in the day when you'd buy this book, it came with this, and they used to put these in like records and stuff like that, where right here, it's got the you fill out what you want to buy, and you stick it in an envelope with, I guess, some cash. I'm not sure, and you mail it off, and then they send you your shit. So, Tourist Trap, you could get the original Tourist Trap, Phantasm, the original Phantasm soundtrack. So this was really cool. This is what sold me on it. Like I said, I had owned this before, but I wanted to pick it up. Like I said, I ended up selling it in that auction, and but when I saw this little extra card here, it's like a little bookmark or something, I was like, yeah, I gotta have that. I ended up spending it. It was not inexpensive, I'll say that, but I've just never seen one of these before, and I was like, oh, I gotta have that. So very cool little pickup there. The Dawn of the Dead novelization, and again, it begs the question: who the hell is Susanna Sparrow? Anybody in the chat know who Susanna Sparrow is? Because apparently, I mean, from all that I've heard, Susanna Sparrow is a real person, but the only thing that she's ever been credited for is the novelization of Dawn of the Dead and the novelization of Martin. So there's always been that rumor of, is that an alias that George used, because maybe George just wrote these books and just used the alias Susanna Sparrow. Who fucking knows? But by all accounts, from what I've heard, Susanna Sparrow is a real human being. So, my tube, new sub, what's up? Glad to have you. I assume you know the Parliament Funkadelic story. I always found it so random. I don't know. What is the Parliament? I know Parliament Funkadelic. Funkadelic story. I don't know. Pertaining to what? Tell me the story. I'm curious now. You got my curiosity. Will says, I need that card. Hey, I might put a price on it. Come to Evansville. I'll hook you up. But yeah, it is this pretty sweet little piece of history there to have along with that book. Born to be Rad. What's up, Garrett? Good to have you in here. Hope you're doing well, sir. And we're just talking a little bit. I picked up some new stuff here. I think you might appreciate. I'll show this next because I did get this in the mail, and this is a new release that was just put out in France, and I just got this off of Amazon France, and this is one that I've just been waiting so long to finally have in HD, because the only release that we've had of this in the United States up until, well, I almost broke the news there. I almost said too much. We may or may not be getting a release of this in the US here coming soon. But I just couldn't wait any longer. I saw this. The artwork is amazing. I just thought it was way, way better than the artwork that we got. But I did pick up this new French Blu-ray release of Bruiser. And I just love, look at that cover art there. Just awesome. And I put this in the special features. It's pretty much the commentary that was included on the DVD with George and Peter Grunwald. So in terms of like special features and stuff like that, this one's pretty bare bones, but I've been wanting to see Bruiser in HD um, for so long that when I saw that this French version had just come out, I was like, I got to pick it up. I got to watch it. And I watched it the other night. It's a Studio Canal release. Um, I watched it the other night, and I gotta say, I mean, it looks so good. It adds so much to that movie because I feel like, because like I said, all we got is that DVD that came out in like 2001. So the fucking it looks terrible even on that DVD. So really, it's hard to find a good version of that. So this is the first time seeing it in HD, and man, it looks gorgeous. Like I've always thought that this movie would really benefit from HD, and it really really does. It's a 2 disc set. It's got the DVD along with the Blu-ray, and then that's the original French poster there. Um, so really, I was so stoked to finally get this and watch it in HD. I mean, it looks and sounds great, and from what I've heard, there may be a US release coming. I will say. Um, Do you know something that I don't in the U.S. Maybe I'll say this. I've heard from very very reliable sources, some slippy sources, that somebody may or may not be currently working on commentary tracks and bonus features for a possible U.S. release of Bruiser coming soon. Um, May or may not. I don't know. I'm just guessing here, but yeah. But yeah, French. Like I said, you can pick us up on the French. I think it was like this is pretty pricey. It was like $35, um, US. So like I said, I've been waiting for an HD, and there was one. I think it was a German Blu-ray that came out years ago, Bruiser, but I think that it was just kind of a port from the DVD. This is an actual new transfer that you can tell they put some work into, and I think it really brings a lot of a lot out of the film that I think a lot of people kind of miss when you're looking at that damn that DVD or the VHS. My says the band is traveling. They are high on LSD, driving through Pennsylvania. They pass a road closed sign and suddenly bright lights, and zombies are all around them. They drove onto the set of Night of the Living Dead. Really? I've never heard that story. That's pretty fucking funny. So 68, I mean, yeah, that would have right have been around the time. Huh. No, I've never heard that story before. That's pretty funny though. I don't huh. That's pretty damn funny. Here's a guy that would know if that's true. Have you heard this story? WGON TV, the man himself, Mr. Lawrence DeVincent. What's up, man? Who won the Creep Show? The Creep Show Steelbook. We're down to the final 3. The final contest, the final vote is up for this week. It's Dawn going head to head with Day of the Dead, and we're down to 3 guys. Still, I'm out. You're out. It's down to I think Brian Marin, Matthew Soros, and Guitar Dude. Brett Aitken. So it's down to 3. Those are the 3 left that are available that are left to win. So we're gonna find out by the end of this week who's gonna win. So yeah, it's unfortunate. Dan Lowry actually had the perfect bracket going. He was the only perfect bracket we had until Day of the Dead beat out Night of the Living Dead here earlier this week, and that kind of knocked him out of contention. So it's been pretty fun. It's been pretty fun to watch. So I'm pretty excited. But yeah, contest Creep Show Steelbook from Scream Factory. Kind of getting hard to find at your local Walmart. So whoever ends up winning this sucker, you're very welcome because I don't even own a copy. I have this copy that I bought for the contest. So so you guys will have something that I don't. But glad to see you in here, Larry. And like we were talking, me and Will were talking about that solid state TV fucker guy. I was like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I've been looking for one of those for so long on eBay. I'm always looking on eBay for one of those TVs because I already got it where I'm going to put it, what I'm going to do with it. And I saw you got one today. I was like, man, of course Larry would find it. But that's so cool. And man, that thing looked brand new. I was shocked. I mean, it looked like it was in really good condition. And it's awesome that it still plugs in and turns on. So kudos to you, man. That's pretty fucking cool. Um, Born to Be Rad says that'd be great. I need an upgrade from that Walmart DVD. Yeah, I mean this is all we've got in the U.S. I mean, and it really is. I mean, because it was like a 2-pack with it was Bruiser and Night of the Living Dead, I think, was the 2-pack. But yeah, this is from 2001. So I mean, we're really, really overdue for a Bruiser release. Um, so we may or may not have one coming. Larry says I've not heard any of this news. Well, yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to be spilling it. I can help myself. I was excited. We're talking about HorrorHound. I ran into Felsher at HorrorHound, Michael Felsher and Matt Blasey. And of course, conversation turns to Bruiser at some point, and then it kind of there's information kind of being leaked, and I was just like, eh. So I hope I'm not spoiling anything, but that's like I said, I'm not confirming or denying anything. I'm just saying it is what it is. It is what it is. Keith Bell, I was talking to John Amplis at Living Dead Weekend about the Martin novelization, and we both wondered who Susanna Sparrow is. Yeah, I mean that's the burning question in my mind. One of the burning questions in my mind in terms of Romero lore is because there's no information. I've looked, I can't find any other information on Susanna Sparrow other than she wrote or co-wrote Dawn of the Dead and Martin. So I don't know. That's the $1,000,000 question. That'd be an awesome, like if Living Dead Weekend just pulled out like, hey, we got Susanna Sparrow is going to be there this year. I'd be like, okay, there's a person I would probably wait in line a long, long time to finally just go up to and be like, I am sorry, I didn't think you were real, and be like, oh, okay, well, can I have your autograph? Yeah. Felsher would know. Yeah, we'll just say that. But anyway, what else did I got a couple other things to show off here before we get out. I picked this up today, actually. I was at there's a local place here called Atmosphere Collectibles in Evansville, Indiana. If you're ever in the area, go by, check them out. They have records, Blu-rays, VHS, CDs. I mean, it's an awesome store and awesome people. The owners are really, really cool people and really cool to talk to. It's like anytime I go in there, it's like no matter what I'm buying or anything, it's like they know. They're like, oh yeah, and we just kind of struck up a conversation about it. But I saw this there. It's a mostly sealed. It's opened at the bottom, but I mean it's in perfect, beautiful condition. It's a VHS Creep Show, and that I got for a special hot price. But I mean it's in damn near perfect condition. And the Creep Show is one that I don't own on VHS, and I haven't. So when I saw this, I was like, Jesus, this is like brand new. I think this was 87 is when this design came out, because I know there's an original release of Creep Show. It's like a big box, and it's like one of the very first VHSs that were ever released from Warner Brothers. But yeah, I was super stoked to find this for a hot Warner Brothers price. In such good condition too, because I mean you see them on eBay and stuff, but I mean these are pretty old tapes, and to be able to find one that still has some of the cellophane on it and all that, I mean I was pretty stoked about it. So I finally got Creep Show on VHS. That might be one I could take to Living Dead Weekend and get some signatures on. But this is something that I got specifically for this year's Living Dead Weekend, and I saw it on eBay. I was like, this is pretty interesting, and it includes I'll just go ahead and show it here. It is a screenplay, second draft of Creep Show 2, screenplay by George A. Romero from stories by Stephen King. 1984, Laurel Entertainment. I'm a huge fan of like screenplays and ads and stuff like that. That's really a lot of the stuff that I'll spend a lot of time and money on when I'm on eBay now, as I look for a lot of lot of stuff like that. I'm buying a lot more screenplays and shit here lately for whatever reason. But this also includes the segment "The Cat from Hell," which was originally supposed to be used in Creepshow 2. Um, but of course was used for Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, a couple of years later. It has the Cat from Hell in it, as well as the story Pinfall, which was another story that George Roach put into this that ended up getting cut out because Creepshow ended up only being the three stories. The Raft, the Hitchhiker, and then the fucking think of it off the top of my head, the Indian, the Indian story. You know what I'm talking about? The Indian story. Old Chief Woodenhead. I don't know why I was blanking on that. So I'm interested in checking out and actually reading and seeing and reading Pinfall for the first time, because I know it was like a comic book or something with the Creepshow 2 release that was put out by Arrow, I believe. It was the Arrow release. It was like a special release. I used to have that. I ended up selling it. I never opened it. Because I ended up getting the other Arrow release, Creepshow 2, along with a couple other DVDs, but I never actually read the Pinfall, so I'm actually pretty excited to finally check out and see what George had in store for us with Pinfall. And then it'd be cool to read the Cat from Hell script too, to see how much of it actually changed from it being originally in the Creepshow 2 screenplay, and see if it was exactly what we saw in Tales from the Dark Side, if it was a slightly different story. So it'd be pretty cool. And I thought it would just be something cool to take to Living Dead Weekend this year to get some signatures, because a lot of the Creepshow 2 cast, and of course Mike Gornick's going to be there, the director. We already talked about Nicotero and Berger. So I think that would be something pretty cool to get some signatures on, is the Creepshow 2 second draft screenplay. So I was very excited to see that. But yeah, I was actually was talking to Mike Salandra at HorrorHound, and we were actually talking about Creepshow 2, and he actually said, Kevin Christ said that the guy that plays the hitchhiker, I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, he's going to be there this year, and apparently that was one of the most like requested guests that he's had over the last few years, was that guy, and we were both just like, wow, that's kind of surprising. But he was like, yeah, but he said that was kind of one of the most requested guests to get, so they got him this year. Dan Kamen, the guy who plays Old Chief Woodenhead, he's going to be there. So I mean, it's going to be pretty cool. Going to be pretty cool to meet to see those guys. Which Dan Kamen, I believe he was at the Living Dead Weekend, Evans City, a couple of years ago, but I didn't make it up that year. So let me see. Jimmy G's got a comment here. We're from West Michigan. My girl hates horror movies. Mine does too. It's okay. Try to get her to watch Day of the Dead. 10 minutes later, she was out. Out as in asleep, or out as in like, I'm fucking leaving. Because that's what my fiance does. If she's not digging something, she's just like, I'm leaving. I'm getting the fuck out of here. But I showed Jade Day of the Dead. She liked Day of the Dead quite a bit, actually, if I remember correctly. I think of the Romero zombie films that I've shown her, I want to say Land of the Dead was probably my fiance's favorite. I think that's the one she enjoyed the most. But I think we watched Land of the Dead while we were in Pittsburgh, the first time we were in Pittsburgh. So I think that kind of helped her get into the spirit of it. Because while, Land of the Dead wasn't filmed in Pittsburgh, the city is pretty much supposed to be Pittsburgh. I mean, it's based on Pittsburgh. So to me, Land of the Dead still feels like a Pittsburgh film in some ways, in a lot of ways, actually. But yeah, that's pretty funny. I'm right there with you, man. But hey, you never know. Take her to Living Dead Weekend, and you never know. She may be like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. I actually saw that. CK was kind of saying that, because CK from the Dead Pit, like I said, I ran into them at HorrorHound, and his wife was there. And apparently she's not a huge fan of that stuff either. And she was just he was like, oh, I'm gonna have to take her to the aquarium or something tomorrow to make up for this because this is just not her scene. But apparently he was talking about it the other night, and apparently she's kind of like, oh, or when are we going to the next one? So yeah, you never know, man. And Living Dead Weekend would be a good one to take her to because, like I said, it's not overly crowded. It's very, you know, it's like a family atmosphere. It's a very cool, laid back. And again, you're in the mall from Dawn of the Dead, which I mean, that's kind of a hard sell. Hey, hun, let's take a vacation to a mall in Pittsburgh. Okay. Ed Neal. Ed Neal's the guy's name. Okay. Well, Ed Neal is fucking dude from Texas Chainsaw. Isn't it? I'll look it up. You may be right. Hang on. I've actually met Ed Neal. That was one of the guys I met back in 2008 at Texas Friday. And that dude's hilarious. He's like on all the time. All right, let's see. Dan Kamen, Tom Atkins, Jim Crut's going to be there. That was announced. Jason Lively, Marty Schiff, which I actually noticed the other day. Marty Schiff just was one of my most recent subscribers to the channel here, so that's pretty. I was super stoked. Tom Wright is his name. Tom Wright is the hitchhiker. Yeah, okay, yeah. Ed Neal was the hitchhiker in Texas Chainsaw. I'm talking about the hitchhiker from Creepshow too. So we're both right. Okay, or no, I was wrong. You were half right, and okay, we're both corrected now. I guess we'll just say that. But yeah, awesome lineup. It's pretty cool that the Night of the Creeps lineup. All those guys are going to be there. I think it's going to be a pretty sweet event this year. I'm really looking forward to it. Wrong hitchhiker. Yeah, the other hitchhiker, Creepshow 2 hitchhiker. But still, Ed Neal was one of the most fun guys I've ever met at a convention. Because, like I said, he's just on. Like he's like a voice actor. It's like every sentence he says, it's like in a different voice or it's like a different character that he's portraying. He's a character. And he's also like a huge like movie poster dealer for a while. I don't know if he's still doing that or not, but I know that was one of his big things back when I met him was he had all these killer one sheets. Sorry, I'm starting to blank. My brain's falling apart. I'm gonna blame it on the Iron City. Oh, let me grab sec crack pumping iron here. I'm telling you, finding the case of Iron City in Cincinnati was exciting. Let's see, WGON. Larry says all the guests have not been announced. There will be a lot more to come. I'm sure there will be. Like the Howard Berger announcement that blew me away. And I was kind of trying to guess, like, trying to guess who would be, because I remember you mentioning that there was a guest that was going to be announced that you'd never met before, and I was like, well, shit, if Larry's never met him, I mean, who the hell can it be? I mean, is Richard Rubenstein going to be there this year? So Howard Berger was one of the names I was like, that's a guy I don't recall ever seeing at any of these, and that would be an awesome get. So I'm really excited to finally get to meet and talk to him. My tube, thanks for the fun stream. Hey, thanks for that awesome story. I'm gonna have to look into that because I have not heard that. Larry, have you heard of that story about the Funkadelic, the Parliament Funkadelic rolling in on, taking LSD and rolling in on the on the set of Night of the Living Dead? That'd be a fucking hilarious story if that's true. Appreciate you sharing that though. I'm glad you stopped by, man. Howard was the one you were referring to. Yeah, that's what I figured. Because I mean, has he done? I'm sure he's done a convention at some point, but I just don't recall off the top of my head ever seeing Howard Berger do a convention. So that's really, really cool. Really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's pretty much my haul that I got over the past couple of weeks. Sorry that I've been out. Like I said, it's been kind of crazy. I've been wanting to get on here and do a stream, but it's like I said last weekend, I was at HorrorHound, and by the time I got back, my daughter she was sick, so we were dealing with that. And I was thinking about doing it throughout the week, but then I think a week before that I was sick, so it's just something going around. It's like, blah. Um, but yeah, I'm glad to be back. I got some stuff coming down the pike here. Um, I think my next stream, I think the next thing that I kind of want to do, I want to go back and rewatch Midnight. I don't know if I love that film or if I was in like a fever haze or something. I don't. But like I said, they had the one sheet for Midnight at HorrorHound, and I was really close to dropping $70 on it just because, like, I just watched it, like I said, for the first time a couple weeks ago, and there's a part of me that was just like, man, this is really bad. But at the same time, there was also a part of me that was like, this is actually kind of good. I kind of dig this. I'm kind of for it. So, I think I might do a midnight watch along if you guys are interested in doing something like that. Um, but yeah, I got some stuff coming in mind that I wouldn't mind doing on here. Um, but like I said, this is the last week for the March Madness bracket challenge. We're down to 3 names. Winner taking home this Creep Show 4K from Scream Factory. It's Dawn of the Dead versus Day of the Dead. Can the Dark Horse, the darkest day in horror, come back as a 3 seed and upset Dawn of the Dead, the 1 seed? I'm gonna be curious. I don't. If I'm picking, I'm of course I think Dawn is the better film, but I just think that public opinion on Day of the Dead has turned so like a complete 180 from where it was back when it first came out that I would not be surprised. There was actually, I remember seeing a video for it. I wasn't there for it, but I remember seeing a video for it at Living Dead weekend a couple of years ago, I believe it. And Nicotero was there, if I remember correctly. And it was the after party. I think that Saturday night, the VIP after party. And Nicotero was there, and he had a bunch of fans and stuff. And then he had a contest. He was like, "Okay, I want everybody that thinks Dawn of the Dead is the better film to line up on this side. I want everybody to think that Day of the Dead is the better film to line up on this side." I don't know if they were just doing it because Greg was doing it, and Greg is in Day of the Dead and worked on Day of the Dead, but Day of the Dead had more people on that side than Dawn. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out. But it should be fun. Um, let's see. My two, Mike Judge, King of the Hill, Beavis Butthead, of course, did a series with bands, and they told that story. Oh shit! Is that part of the what was that called? Tales from the Tour Bus or something like that. I remember that because I remember they did a season with country artists and then a season with like funk and soul artists. I've seen like different ones. I've never actually said. I don't think I've ever seen that one, so I feel like I would have heard that. That's pretty fucking hilarious. But I mean, again, who knows if it's true or not? Like you said, I have no idea if it's true. Who knows? Um, you're talking, a story that took place 50 years ago from a bunch of guys that were high out of their mind on LSD and God knows what else. So, but that'd be a hilarious story if that were true. Let's see. Larry said Howard has appeared at a few cons before, but never at LDW. Okay. Yeah, that's just it's not a name that I don't see a whole lot. So it's really really cool that he's going to be in Pittsburgh this year. Let's see, Garrett, Born to Be Red. I agree. I said that about Day the other day on a show. Don's still my favorite, but Day seems to be most people's favorite now. Yeah, I mean it's weird. I hear that more and more. Um, and I understand it. Like anytime that I'm on here and I do like a countdown or I try to rank different aspects of George's films, like best zombie, best villain, best whatever. Day of the Dead is usually right up there at the top. I mean, best zombie. I mean, you can't have a more iconic zombie than Bub, I don't think, in terms of just performance and the makeup and everything. I mean, it's a brilliant performance from Howard Sherman. Best villain. I mean, is there a more devious villain in a Romero film than Joe Pilato as Captain Rhodes? I mean, just that, and the performances are fantastic. I mean, it's Tom Savini's tour de force by far in terms of makeup effects and special effects. And I mean, Jesus, look at the names that were involved on that. Nicotero and Berger and Mike Deek and all those guys. I mean, it's just all those guys went on to do big things after the fact. Mike Tursick. Um, so I mean, it's just and it's George. I mean, you can't. I mean, George has always said that's his favorite of his zombie films was Day of the Dead. So you know, you can't argue with that, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, like you, my Dawn is always forever going to be my obsession, my favorite film ever. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think of Dawn of the Dead in some way. Probably multiple times a day. But I think in terms of just like the general horror audience now, I think Day of the Dead is still, and maybe, like I said, I don't know if it's because of the the societal zeitgeist that we're in now, where I think people have become more cynical and more, distrusting of the government and the military and all that. And maybe it clicks more with people than a movie like Dawn does because we don't have a lot of shopping malls around anymore. We don't like consumerism is, you know, uh, which of course consumerism is always going to be a thing, um, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. but But yeah, this has been really fun, guys. I'm so glad to be back on here. I had a lot of fun. Horror Hound. Um, like I said, if you guys ever get a chance to go. Like it's packed, but man, there's so much there. There's so much to do. The panels, the vendor halls. I mean, like I said, I didn't even touch on the celebrities that were there because I kind of avoided that. Ken Foray was there. I did walk by. I said hi to him and told him it was good to see him. Um, Fora was there. George Wendt was there. That was cool to see George Wendt from Cheers, and I always remember him from like the Little Rascals movie where he's like paper or plastic, because I grew up on that Little Rascals movie. Um, but yeah, so many people. The Reanimator reunion with Jeffrey Combs and um, oh, there's just so many people. William Catt was there. Kane Hodder was there, of course, and of course Kane Hodder was always busy. Um, so yeah, I mean, just the guest list is just incredible every year. Just incredible guest list. Um, but yeah, had a really good time with it. But I think I'm conned out. I think I'm done with cons until we get to June and it's Living Dead weekend time. Because as fun as it is, it's just not. It's like I said, you go to Pittsburgh, you go to Living Dead weekend, and you get to talk. You know, you get to talk in your language to people that that understand you. Um, but I see any more comments here. Good points. Says Born to Be Rad. I appreciate. Yeah, trust me. I thought about this shit a whole lot, man. That's like I said. It's like a question that they're like, how often do you think of the Roman Empire? I'm like, no. How often do I think about who the fuck is Susanna Sparrow? That's what I think of most of the time. Larry says I'll have to go back and listen to the beginning later since I missed most of the show. No problem, man. Yeah, it's always available to go back and listen to. I did show off the newspapers and stuff that you sent to me. I really appreciate it, man. It's so cool. I'll show you. I already got the Post Gazette framed and on the wall. I had to take it off the wall for this stream, but um, read the article, great listening, great going back and seeing those quotes from Stephen King and Tom Savini and those guys, and seeing Steve say that George was his favorite collaborator, and just really took you back, and it's just really cool to have. So I really appreciate that, man. It meant a lot to me. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna hop off here. It's been fun, guys. I'll be back next weekend. Like I said, honestly, thinking back on it, um, doing a midnight watch along would have probably been a good stream to do tomorrow night for Easter. Because I think at one point in the movie they go to sacrifice this girl and they want to do it on Easter for some reason. Cause I guess it's a religious thing. But so I don't know. Fuck, I should have done a midnight watch along for Easter. Kind of like I did Santa Claus for Christmas. Uh, oh man, I missed it. I don't know. Maybe I'll hop on here tomorrow night and do a fucking watch along. What the hell? Um, Great. It certainly did. Like I said, I already got it framed up and on the wall. But thanks for stopping by, Larry. Good to see you in here, Garrett. Born to be Rad. Check out his channel. He's gonna be a big YouTuber for any of us. So don't forget us little people, Garrett. When you hit the big time. But glad you popped in here, man. Happy Easter to you, and happy Easter, everybody out there. Hope you have a good one tomorrow, and you spend a little time with your family. And if you got kids, hunt some eggs, whatever you guys do on Easter. The Easter Bunny's on his way. Actually, he's probably going to be here in a couple hours. So I really appreciate it, guys. You have a great rest of the night. Let me try that again. Great rest of the night. A great rest of the weekend, as always. Stay scared.